Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. We've got several exciting stories for you today, a couple of updates on happenings related to mysterious deaths, another plane crash. We now have proof from the DOJ in the form of a letter regarding the investigation by John Durham showing the incredible scope of what's going on. Some excellent investigative reporting coming from Project Veritas and James O'Keefe, the whole team over there. Just gotta love those guys. Also, we've got some new information about the Italian arm of the Russiagate scandal, as well as Jim Jordan laying down the hammer. First of all, here in Los Angeles, a sheriff's deputy was shot in the head at a fast food restaurant. Looks like a Jack in the Box. This is from Breaking News Live, and it was sent over by my good friend and fellow researcher Aaron Moffat. An off-duty Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department deputy is in critical condition after being shot in the head at a Jack in the Box restaurant in Alhambra, California on Monday, authorities said. The deputy was standing at the counter in the restaurant wearing civilian clothes when a man armed with a handgun approached him and shot him once in the head, Sheriff's Department officials have said. The gunman then fled the scene, and Sheriff's officials said there does not appear to be a motive in this case. The investigation is ongoing, and no further details were immediately available. Of course, this calls to mind immediately the deaths of other sheriffs and law enforcement officials on both the East Coast and the West Coast, as well as the rash of mysterious deaths that have happened recently. We also have another strange suicide we'll be talking about in just a moment, but first, a quick word from my sponsor. Friends, we have seen some devastating weather disasters recently, and too much of our nation's farmlands remain underwater as we speak. Storms continue to rake the heartland, knocking out power repeatedly to millions of people just like us. It's been a bad year so far for areas that have been hit by this stuff, and hurricane and wildfire seasons are just getting underway. When emergencies strike and the power goes out, closing stores, you should have a backup food supply standing by in your home, ready for you to use. Have you seen the 2-week food supply in a locking tote from My Patriot Supply? If not, it's time to get online now and get one. Right now, this 2-week emergency food kit is being sold at 45% off the regular price when you go to my special website, www.preparewithredpill78.com. There's breakfast, lunches, dinners, and they last up to 25 years. And My Patriot Supply ships fast too, just one business day right to your door. Remember, when it's breaking news, it's too late to prepare. So do this now so there's no surprises, and save 45% at preparewithredpill78.com. That's preparewithredpill78.com. All right, thank you for sticking around. The reason I am showing this is because it's yet another strange suicide. This is the wife of psychedelic artist Peter Max, Mary Max. He came to prominence, I guess, by creating some, very colorful art. I know that I've seen it on posters before. That's about the extent of my knowledge of his work. But this is a suspected suicide on the Upper West Side of Manhattan in the apartment. Now, of course, the first thing I looked for was, was a red scarf involved? But apparently she died of nitrogen asphyxiation. She was involved in a lengthy court battle with Peter Max's son, maybe some other children, and some other people who were looking to gain control of the vast fortune that he had amassed over the years. She had, at least with the son, she had accused him of stealing about $5 million worth of art that Peter had apparently bequeathed her in their prenuptial agreement. Peter Max is 81 years old. He's not doing very well. He's in bad health. And she said, or apparently Max's son Adam alleged that Mary tried to hire a hitman to mutilate his father's hand and to kill a depressed friend in Riverside Park. This is from court filings in 2015. He also accused her of physically abusing the artist and poisoning him with laxatives. They thought that she was trying to kill Peter Max. But, of course, he said she was the love of his life. There really hasn't been much comment on her death. And it's very strange to me. Death by nitrogen asphyxiation. Where did she even get a tank of nitrogen? I mean, I know it's available, but I wouldn't know where to get a tank of nitrogen. Seems like a strange thing. Maybe a nitrous oxide. I could see someone trying to kill themselves with nitrous oxide because then they would pass out and go to sleep pretty quickly. I don't know what it would be like if you were breathing in a bunch of nitrogen, and how would you even get it inside of you? Just very strange, very, very strange death. But, also it reminds me a lot of the death of Kate Spade, another wealthy person in the New York fashion industry. Fashion and art, they kind of go together. So obviously this is going to be something that we're going to want to keep a close eye on and see if anything else develops. All right, also yesterday, or rather 2 days ago, 2 people were killed in a small plane crash on Long Island, not particularly far away from Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan, where the helicopter crashed yesterday. So there were 2 people that were killed. The authorities say that a small plane crashed on Long Island, New York. There was a man and a woman on board, and the FAA said in a statement that the single-engine Beechcraft A-36 crashed in Southold at around 9:15 a.m. on Saturday. Now, these 2 people that were on board, they were both killed. Their names have not been released. There was also a dog on the plane, but the dog survived. The Southold chief of police, Martin Flately, said that the aircraft was flying from Long Island's MacArthur Airport to New Bedford when it experienced some type of mechanical failure and crashed. And it crashed into a field at the Harbs family farm. Of course, the FAA is going to investigate along with the NTSB. Just very strange. Yet another small engine plane crash happening in a fairly close proximity to other crashes that we have been tracking for several months. Now, on to the best news of the day. A DOJ letter has been revealed, and inside that letter, it shows us the broad scope of John Durham's Spygate investigation, and it's much larger than we previously knew. A new letter from the Justice Department addressed to Representative Gerald Nadler reveals John Durham's investigation into Spygate is much larger than previously known. AG Barr's review of the FISA abuses and surveillance against Trump's campaign is broad in scope and multifaceted, according to the DOJ letter. The letter to Nadler, penned by Assistant Attorney General Stephen Boyd, indicates Fusion GPS, foreign intelligence services, and non-governmental organizations and individuals are all a target of U.S. Attorney John Durham's investigation into the origins of Spygate. Can you say it with me? They are screwed. The review is broad in scope and multifaceted and is intended to illuminate open questions regarding the activities of U.S. and foreign intelligence services as well as non-governmental organizations and individuals, Boyd wrote. Durham's investigation of the investigations involving both the 2016 presidential campaigns is so massive that the Justice Department had to clear existing office space to make room for the team of U.S. attorneys, other personnel, and DOJ employees. Although Boyd did not specify, it is publicly known that Australian, British, and perhaps Turkish intel groups were involved in the spying campaign against Trump and his associates during the 2016 presidential election. Now, that Turkish, that is very interesting to me. That's the first time I've heard Turkish. They don't mention Italian, although we will talk about Italy a little bit later on. But Turkey, if you'll remember, was the country that General Flynn supposedly was in trouble for being a representative of and not filing his FARA application. Perhaps that was just a way to get discovery on Turkey. According to George Papadopoulos, the honeypot named Azra Turk, who approached him and tried to seduce him to obtain information about Trump's 2016 campaign, was clown and affiliated with Turkish intel. Wow. The new DOJ letter also indicates that Durham may be looking into gutter Oppo research firm Fusion GPS, who hired former British spy Christopher Steele to compile a 35-page Russia dossier to smear Donald Trump and his associates. Hillary Clinton paid for that Russian dossier and hid the payments to Steele by funneling the money through the DNC's law firm, Pkwy. The phony dossier was then used by the FBI to obtain a FISA warrant and 3 subsequent renewals on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, who, as I'm sure you'll remember from earlier reports earlier this week, Carter Page was previously an informant for the Clowns in America, the State Department, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, someone who they clearly knew was not a Russian asset. Now, last week, it was reported that Christopher Steele was cooperating with U.S. investigators and possibly Durham. Here we have screenshots of the letter itself. I know that no one's going to be able to see this, so sorry about that in the comments, guys. However, I will leave a link to this letter in the pinned comment below. Paul Sperry says here, developing DOJ letter indicates Simpson, Fusion GPS, Steele, Orbis, and MI6 GCHQ may also be within the scope of Durham's investigation. Guys, how good is this news? When you look at how large this investigation is, can you not give the government and John Durham and his team a little credit for not running out of the gate with a bunch of indictments in hand? Now, we know that there are sealed indictments, but this could mean that there are going to be even more indictments that begin to appear. This is incredible news, you guys. What did I just say yesterday? They are building the absolute best case ever in the history of justice, certainly in the history of the Department of Justice at the United States in Washington, D.C. This right here is proof positive that they are doing their work. This job is going to take place, the swamp is going to be cleared up, and these people are going to be convicted. Now, Greg Jarrett was on Hannity talking about this broad scope of the Durham probe and the fact that it includes the non-governmental actors like Glenn Simpson, very, very important. Nellie Orr, we know that she probably ghost wrote the Russia dossier. And the DNC and the Hillary campaign, they all paid for it. Now, on Monday night, Fox News analyst Greg Jarrett and former special counsel Ken Starr joined Sean Hannity to discuss Attorney General Barr's letter to Nadler. And Greg told Sean, what struck me was that it said non-government, which means Glenn Simpson at Fusion GPS, Nellie Orr at that same company. It also means the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign who were involved with paying for the phony dossier. What did I tell you guys? It's happening. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what Greg had to say.
Let me ask you both. I'll start with you, Ken Starr. This letter by Stephen Boyd to Jerry Nadler, responding to his request for information related to a review underway by the Department of Justice into certain activities involving the campaigns, and it goes on to say the review is broad in scope, it is multifaceted, it is intended to illuminate open questions regarding the activities of U.S. and foreign intelligence services, as well as non-governmental organizations and individuals. I take this letter to be a wide open notice to everybody that all abuse of power, any corruption that has taken place in the course of these events is going to be discovered, and every rock is going to be looked under, and they're going to get to the truth, whether or not people abuse power. How do you interpret it?
It's a very good news, confirmation that we will get the truth. And here is a key dimension of that, Sean. This investigation is being conducted by professionals, by John Durham, the United States Attorney, by others in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and by the Department of Justice professionals. So there's not some outsider, Bob Mueller being brought in, you're now special counsel. What Bill Barr has wisely done is says we're using the resources of the Justice Department, and he's also making it very clear that he's getting cooperation from the intelligence agencies, by the way, including, it appears, foreign intelligence agencies. So I think we should be very optimistic that at long last we're going to know the truth.
And we saw what happened with a couple of Italian intel people, Greg Jarrett. How do you interpret this letter?
Well, what struck me was it said non-governmental. And so that means people like Glenn Simpson, Fusion GPS, Nellie Orr at that same company. It also means the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign who were involved in paying for the phony dossier that was used as a pretext to launch the investigation, as well as lying to the FISA court to spy on a Trump campaign associate. And so this is very broad. It's far encompassing. And it looks like John Durham and his team of investigators will be looking at all matters of potential corruption seriously.
Well, like Greg said, the scope of this investigation is broad enough that it is going to ensnare literally everyone who had something to do with this coup against the president. This is not just the FBI. This is not just the DOJ. It's not just the DNC. It's not just Hillary Clinton. It's not just Bruce and Nellie Orr. It's not just Glenn Simpson or Fusion GPS or Perkins Coie. It is all of them. It is quite literally every single individual and organization that tried to overthrow a democratically elected president of the United States of America. Guys, this is real. This is huge. It is unprecedented in scope. It is unprecedented in size. It is unprecedented in every possible way. You have to remember, something like this has never been done, but they're going to do it, and it's going to take as much time as it needs because John Durham does not lose a case. All right, now we also have Representative Ratcliffe also commenting on the DOJ letter and talking about the investigation and, everything that's going on, the false statements, the FISA abuse, the leaks, and also the UK and Australia intelligence are under review to be taken a look at. So specifically from Paul Sperry, he says that Representative John Ratcliffe of the House Judiciary Committee is interpreting the DOJ letter to mean Special Prosecutor John Durham is investigating crimes including false statements, classified leaks, falsified FISA affidavits, and illegal domestic spying by the clowns in America, and also the fact that foreign intelligence agencies are under review, including the UK and Australia. And we've talked extensively about the UK's role in Spygate. We've also touched on Australia. This is so big, guys, and it has long-reaching ramifications, not only here in our country, but abroad. These governments and these intel agencies in other countries are probably going to be bending over backwards to make the United States happy once these things start to come out, and heads are going to roll. They are not going to want to endanger the relationship, these bilateral agreements that we have with all of these various countries, because the relationship with the United States is so vitally important to them, to their safety in the world, and to their position economically. So mark my words, guys. Keep watching. This is happening. I am not going to steer you wrong on this. It's exactly the way that I said it's going to be. It's going slowly and methodically so that they can build the best possible case. And it's building against many, many, many different fronts. So vitally important to keep your head cool, sit back, grab your popcorn, and watch the show. Now, as I stated earlier, James O'Keefe and the people at Project Veritas, they have another tech insider blowing the whistle. This time it's at Pinterest, and it is how Pinterest is listing top pro-life sites as PORN, and Bible verses are being censored. So Project Veritas interviewed a tech insider who blew the whistle on how Pinterest listed top pro-life sites as PORN and then censored Bible verses. Now, the insider, who of course wished to remain anonymous, described in detail how Pinterest blocks Christian terms and Bible verses not only by not allowing the terms to trend, but also by blocking them from notifications and the auto-complete feature. Pinterest also blacklisted the group liveaction.org by classifying them as PORN, which ultimately blocked their URL from ever being pinned. Also, Ben Shapiro was being censored in a zero-tolerance movement. Now, undercover videos of the butchers at PP were marked as harmful conspiracy theories. Now, my question in Project Veritas and also the Gateway Pundit is asking, where is Congress? Every single tech company is acting like a publisher, not a neutral platform. Now, Project Veritas says that they received a large text file titled Sensitive Terms List. The insider said the file contains search terms that Pinterest considers sensitive, and that the terms are modified in search results according to different value assignments. According to the insider and supporting documents, terms are assigned as abusive, sensitive, and brand unsafe. Some of the actions that can be taken on search terms include blocking autocomplete results in the search bar. I have seen that in action myself. Providing an advisory message when a term is searched for, removing the term from recommended or trending feeds, and blocking email or push notifications. Search results are also modified based on the values that are applied to these terms. Project Veritas reviewed the sensitive terms list and discovered that Christianity-related terms like Christian Easter and Bible verses were marked as brand unsafe. The insider explained to Project Veritas in an interview that such terms are removed from autocomplete search results. You can watch the whistleblower yourself tell James O'Keefe in detail how Pinterest is blocking Christians and conservatives with their algorithms. We're going to go ahead and just take a brief moment to look at a segment from this video.
One person really can let people know. One person can bring transparency to big tech.
Last year, an individual from Facebook approached us and gave us documents inside the company appearing to show how Facebook deboosts content for political reasons. Facebook was forced to respond. Her story inspired many like her to come forward. And now another insider has bravely stepped forward, leaking documents that show how big tech appears to have thrown its hat into the political debate. Now, the documents we've obtained raise serious questions about whether these companies are neutral platforms or publishers with an editorial agenda. Thanks.
I work at Pinterest, and we're talking about some of the documents that I uncovered that people need to know about inside Pinterest.
Like Facebook and Twitter, Pinterest is another social media company where millions of users share pictures on their profiles. Just back in April, Pinterest joined its larger contemporaries on the stock market with an IPO evaluation of $12.7 billion. A Pinterest insider shed light on some activities that shareholders may want to know about.
It's pretty incredible to me that Pinterest would have the guts to block these types of websites. These websites are clearly not offensive content, but however, they are grouped together with others that are extremely offensive. Project Veritas has previously exposed shadow banning of Trump supporters on Twitter and Facebook's efforts to deboost conservative websites. O'Keefe is calling on more Silicon Valley insiders to come forward. Now, if there are any Silicon Valley insiders that watch my show, you happen to be conservative and happen to work at one of these places, I would love to speak with you as well, but I highly suggest that you go and reach out to Project Veritas because they are quite literally the tip of the spear, and I am more than happy to support their efforts here on my show. I think that it is just reprehensible to think that these people are single-handedly and without any real authority deciding what it is that the public can consume, what is okay for them. Now, I guarantee that the types of websites that are not banned on these social media platforms are going to be disgusting in nature, and they are going to be putting really, really harmful ideas and thoughts into the minds of young people and, old people alike. So I really hope that this reporting makes some serious moves at Pinterest because it exposes the people directly that are behind the censorship of groups that really have no business being censored. Please go and finish the video at Project Veritas. All right, breaking news, great news. Trump-bashing Republican Justin Amash has stepped down from the Freedom Caucus after a discussion with the Freedom Caucus board. Trump-hating Republican lawmaker stepped down from the Freedom Caucus on Monday night, and this comes weeks after the Michigan Republican started trashing the U.S. president, President Donald Trump, and calling for his impeachment. He is the lone voice in the Republican Party so far to call for Trump's removal over the junk Mueller witch hunt. Now, Haley Bird here tweets out that Representative Justin Amash tells me he stepped down from the House Freedom Caucus and the HFC board tonight. I have the highest regard for them, and they're my close friends, Amash said. I didn't want to be a further distraction for the group. What do you want to bet that he was asked to step down? His choice was not voluntary. Representative Jim Jordan told Laura Ingraham he spoke with Amash on Monday with Representative Mark Meadows, and they agreed that Justin Amash would step down from the Freedom Caucus. He said, well, we had a nice long meeting with Justin tonight, the board of the Freedom Caucus. The chairman and Mr. Amash will be talking about that. We disagree with Justin's assessment of this entire investigation, the impeachment. We strongly disagree with him. Justin is our friend, and Mark, of course, is our chairman, and those two will be talking about this tomorrow. Sure enough, Justin Amash is stepping down. He has absolutely no business being on the Freedom Caucus. Justin Amash is not a Republican. Justin Amash is not a Trump supporter. Justin only cares about his own pocketbook. He wants to continue to import cheap goods from China. With the tariffs on China, Justin's business is probably taking a major hit. Maybe, Justin, you should look at doing business in America if you're going to be selling products here in America. All right, now a developing story. The Italian government is roiled after country was used by the former president's deep state to spy on the Trump campaign, and 2 intel chiefs have been fired. In late April, Papadopoulos told Fox News that President Trump called the Italian prime minister that week after he broke news about Professor Mifsud being located in Rome. And last week, George Papadopoulos tweeted out the Italian parliament is holding hearings to declassify material related to spying on himself. He said the Italian government is currently holding hearings in parliament to declassify material related to the monitoring of me at Link campus in Rome and Joseph Mifsud. Recommended American journalists reach out to their Italian colleagues. You are missing the story of the century. And I'd like to point out the only reporting that I've seen on this has been done by the Gateway Pundit, and that, of course, was done after the expose by Neon Revolt. And quick side note, I did interview Neon Revolt, and I will be airing it, I believe, after the 18th. So keep your eyes open in the next week or so for that interview with Neon Revolt. The Italians outed Joseph Mifsud as an intelligence asset with the British intelligence, the clowns, and the FBI. Now, from the American Thinker, the Prime Minister of Italy has fired 2 of the country's most powerful intelligence chiefs in a major shakeup. It was directly attributed to the participation with John Brennan and the clowns in America using Joseph Mifsud to set up George Papadopoulos as a pretext for launching the Great Russia Hoax of 2016. The use of Italian intelligence agencies to spy on members of the Trump campaign have roiled the internal workings of the Italian government at the highest levels. Simply put, Joseph Mifsud, who is represented in the Mueller report on page 1 as a Russian agent, is actually a senior Italian intelligence asset. He works with British intelligence, he works with the clowns in America, and he works with the FBI, none of them the Russians. Mifsud trains intelligence agents at a Center for Advanced Intel Studies in the hills above Rome. He's living there now. His rent is paid for by the Institute. This is the mysterious Russian agent that is at the very center of the official explanation of the origins of the Mueller probe. This is the story of the century. And this is the kind of thing that John Durham, U.S. Attorney John Durham, is going to be looking at very, very closely. To think this entire time, remember the Democrats, the DNC, they said that Joseph Mifsud was likely dead when they knew the entire time he was living next to the embassy in Rome. He is not a Russian agent. He is not anything close to a Russian agent. If anything, he is an American agent. He worked with the clowns in America. He worked with the FBI. He worked with the Italian intelligence, who previously had met with the former president of this country and most likely members of the HRC campaign in order to entrap President Trump. I cannot wait to present the questions and answers from Giulio Occhianero, which will be read by Neon Revolt, as well as show you the interview with Neon Revolt, because he did incredible reporting on this, put a lot of really, really compelling things together. So I will actually leave a link to that in the description, the pinned comment below, and I encourage everyone to be watching Italy very carefully in the weeks to come. All right, and finally tonight, an update on the helicopter crash yesterday in New York City. The pilot's name was Tim McCormick. He was an off-duty firefighter. He was not the owner of the chopper, but he was a pilot for the owner. And he appeared to have some type of mechanical failure. I was actually sent an email by someone who would like to go as helicopter anon. He said, I'm a commercial and instrument-rated helicopter pilot. I was UH-1N air crewman in the USMC. The pilot in the video was deliberately changing course with what appears to be erratic behavior. You can hear the main and tail rotor vibes mixing with each other as his heading changed, which is the main and tail rotor acoustic signature interfering with one another in relation to the camera's fixed position. It sounds like the pilot was changing course repeatedly, like he was trying to fix a heading for an emergency landing while trying to avoid the possibility of landing in the water, because helicopters are top-heavy, so landing in the water increases the chances of death due to vertigo while underwater, which is triggered by the aircraft rotating upside down and sinking. There obviously aren't many open landing spots in NYC, and once an emergency condition is detected, the pilot must first determine what the emergency is. Of course, this takes time, which is a finite resource as a pilot. My feeling is, on this occasion, that there was a mechanical emergency that the pilot was assessing, to which he probably determined that he needed to set the aircraft down immediately. The fact that there was a few seconds in between this clip and when he crashed onto the top of a building seems to me like it would have been the time frame needed for a mechanical failure to develop, like a lack of oil in the gearbox that rapidly gets worse until the component fails, leading to auto-rotation, for example. On Pinnacle auto rotation, I'm not sure that's what happened, but the NTSB will release that info hopefully, is one of the most difficult autos to pull off, so it's not surprising that he died trying to safely land. The G-forces on a critical hard landing can crush your internal organs, which is how I bet the pilot passed, because there's just not a lot of space to roll a helicopter on top of a skyscraper during a crash with sufficient forward airspeed. He could have had a controlled impact with the top of the building, which essentially would be translated as controlled flight into terrain, but that would only be likely if a condition developed during this attempt to land. His course changes during the video give me that impression because normal CFIT is inadvertent, because most CFITs happen when the pilot is unaware of his relation to ground instrument conditions, flying in fog and running into a hillside, for example. He was attempting to extend his flight time for a desperate few more seconds so he could find a better place to perform an emergency landing. This to me says it's a chip light or oil pressure low light indication, because both types of warnings give a time frame to land immediately, mechanical failure imminent. If it were an engine failure, the aircraft would have dropped towards the drink and the pilot would have likely performed an emergency auto rotation until he hit the water. But instead, it stayed aloft and its heading was erratic. So, some interesting information about what potentially happened in the last few moments of that pilot's life. Now, interestingly, as I was finishing up this video, I got a notification from Real Bill Smith, I believe it was his backup channel, Bill Smith News, and he found some information about the owner of this helicopter. So I'm going to actually tell you guys to go watch that video so that you can get that information, because he just put it out, so there's no reason for me to go ahead and include it in this as well. Just wanted to do an update on what happened to this poor gentleman. All right, folks, I think that's all that I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.